So it's all life sciences. So this was a highlight what Francis likes. Stuff. You know.
I'll catch you again.
Oh, totally fine. Absolutely.
Oh, you're not seeing
Close the door.
why don't we get statistics data management? Okay, how about
You
here?
just had a forum here today?
Yes, it
Was
was
it
great.
well attended?
Yeah, it was really good.
That's great, congratulations.
It was really awesome, the SGM. It was awesome.
I heard, that's great.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
They're located.
I did that. I just joined the guy.
Oh, it's fine, that's great. It's a good one to join. There's a lot of need for understanding and for human resources.
Passed away when she graduated in 1952. Sent to see him at Wicks. Got married in 19 for some little altars off the side.
I'm well, how are you?
Magnificent.
I know, so nice to see you. She's doing great. Hard to believe she's already 3 months. And it really has gone by. Yeah, my husband just reminded me actually this morning we haven't done our 3-month anniversary yet. You know, about your mom. There's this thing where you try to do it with your mom. So I'm like, oh gosh, we're behind. We're doing it again. But that's sort of exactly. Yeah. She's so cute. She's a little chunky monkey. Yeah.
So I think it makes sense. I mean, the whole session.
My son skated.
Because I feel like a lot of times you go through and you have actually one or two questions.
That was fine when I was playing. So we're trying to get him to last year. This year we love it. So Jill was one girl. Marshmallows. And I don't know.
She said, sign me up, but
He's probably the same much metal in here. So, it's going to be interesting. More a story. Even now, I think it's just a bad dream.
Security.
It's like a bad dream that came in.
Oh, cool. Well, and you guys have best classes. You're really incentivized to swing down the road. You guys are really
Very busy, yeah. So cheers. Why don't you grab a seat? That's where we're just finishing extra needs and very
like I said, more to what
Yeah, it's really moving. There's a pro-business administration. So it's really trying to attract business in the city. To build my you gotta be, So the old one, the old one.
It was a good practice.
That was my first year.
From,
That was really good. No, at first it was really good. But then it got really bad. I was able to stay pretty well.
and so we say,
The challenge really came in.
whatever you
It
want.
was better for really a big store.
Yeah, so we're trying to do, we're trying to come to sort of like,
That's all so deep into
Steering wheel. Yeah, so I felt like that.
here it is.
And then, more broad
So you can see actually.
Yeah.
Now you can sell it.
not only one, and when they come, you better grab. If you don't grab, man, that's it, it's gonna be.
But 7 inches. 7 inches. That's a bigger mind.
You don't really know what level your yard is.
Oh, yeah.
Water.
Definitely.
So, yeah, he's kept up with it all. He's got, you go up the back,
It was really nice. All right now.
yeah, they put the same thing, they have like 5 foot 4 inches.
Well, I learned a lot. I learned,
Yeah.
and I'm totally different. And I'll set it up where there's a robotic snowboard for down there. It's just or what do these guys do?
Yes, and then of course they'll do that.
Yeah, but just
Yeah, it's a good habit for the kids, obviously.
We're both really good at that. Morning vision teaches you totally different. So then, one of them, I ended up saying, look, let's just do it. The other one,
Snowboard.
this is a bone in my head.
we had the
Yep.
So he just sprays, he's got like, he learned somewhere this. It's like a PVC pipe.
Yep.
Attached to a drill hole, so just put them off, and that's kind of how he does it. In the end, it's yeah, so like, the holes will never freeze, so it runs out of electricity, they'll let it fall where it wants to. That way, they don't let the water out. they're not using it.
I didn't know what her house was.
Yes, I used to.
That's how they must do it.
Yeah, no, I yeah, I did.
Problem with the
Yeah, once you
take off a layer of I tried to flood it last week. What I really
I saw this running around.
That's a perfect case.
Yeah, I would like that. Like I said, I learned a lot of
Getting down the door just to like everybody else.
Look at you all casual now.
And I got my own purse. This morning, I have to come back here to my car, so I'll drive in. And
He's going to help us.
How are you? So Mark coded.
That's what I'm eating.
That's
And we can bring in all right, so I'll bring in a few more chairs. Yeah, so if anyone's up there, let's tell them to film whatever.
Oh, yeah. There'll be a lot of cool things for
I don't want that good opportunity. A little bit on the higher price
Whenever I go to LA, I stay there because I have so
My uncle, I used to live there, so I went to
This judge who tried to
Good morning, everyone. Everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Good morning. What a welcome sight. My goodness, we have a terrific crowd here. We have terrific people who've come on to help us produce the wonderful programming our membership has come to expect. Today, we put an agenda up. Thank you all for coming. I know it's some of you have quite a commute. Here's our agenda for today. We'd like to have introductions all around. We've got 26 new co-chairs, two working groups basically who started from scratch. We'll also introduce our forum advisory liaisons and then review our best practices, roles and responsibilities, the process of bringing forward programming and timelines, and then just a very brief review of the two kinds of forums that co-chairs help us produce our standalones and then our collaborative forums. We'll talk about themes for 2015 with the goal for today, get to know one another, and then come up with a short 2-forum series for really a hot topic that we haven't covered before, that all of you have really been interested in and have brought up before. So then we'll break out and build a collaborative 2-forum series. So introductions, here I have this. Now I know I've got your titles, I've got your designations. I'd like to pass this around. This will eventually go into the website for the leadership for all of the forums, for all of the working groups. So please, you see your name, just check it off and put in any corrections that you may have for your titles. And then circulate that around. So do we want to start introductions? How about, hi.
Hi, perfect timing.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jeff Hodge with GE Healthcare, previously Accelerx, acquired a couple of years ago, based in Marlboro.
And Jeff is one of the co-chairs of our new biomanufacturing group.
Norm Garceau, Blue Sky Biotech, based in Worcester, Mass, and I'm on the biomanufacturing team as well.
How do we want to do this? We want to just go around the table and then around the side? Okay.
Edwin Michelle, I'm with Sanofi, and I work with the BD and Finance Working Group.
Masha Hareli, ATR LLC, a consultant and laboratory service provider located in Worcester, co-chair of the Drug Discovery Working Group.
Steve Riesinger, MedChem Partners. We're a medicinal chemistry and startup services company in Lexington, and I'm co-chair with Masha at Drug Discovery.
Regina Stepanius. I'm in the Biostatistics Data Management and Clinical Trials Committee. I'm from Prometrica LLC. It's a CRO in Cambridge.
Dan Takizawa. I'm with Continuous Pharmaceuticals. We're a spin-out of the Novartis MIT Center for Continuous Manufacturing. We're a CDMO based out of Woburn, and I'm in the CRO CMO group.
My name is Mike Bureau. I'm with Lathrop & Gage. It's a law firm here in town, and I'm a member of the Legal and Regulatory Group.
Greg Benning. I'm with Back Bay Life Science Advisors. We're a strategy and financial advisory firm, and I'm in the EU group.
I'm John King. I'm with Genzyme Sanofi, and I am in the marketing communications group.
Alana Robbins, and I work at Biogen, and I'm also in the marketing communications.
I'm Betsy Parsons. I work for Biogen, and I'm in the safety and environmental group.
I'm Barton Nielsen. I work at Infinity Pharmaceuticals, right down the street, and also in the safety and environmental facilities group.
Good morning, I'm Mac Rubley from Boston Biomedical Associates, and I'm in the CRO CMO.
Good morning, I'm Frank Sally. I'm a lawyer with the law firm of Kenny & Sams located in Boston and Southborough, and co-chair of the Human Resources Committee.
Maurizio Cattaneo. I'm with Biovolutions. We're CRO CMO, and I'm co-chair of the CRO CMO group.
I'm Patrick Marshall. I'm one of the founders for Stratacuity. We're a recruitment and staffing firm focused in the biopharmaceutical market segment here. And my role within the company is mostly focused on marketing internally and for hiring internally. And I'm a member of the HR working group.
I'm Gwen Reese. I'm with Regulatory at Ironwood and in the Legal and Regulatory Working Group.
Ilker Jalsen with Cita Pharmaceuticals. I'm the head of Biostatistics and Data Management and Medical Writing. And I joined the Biostatistics Data Management Group, as you can guess.
Okay, I'm Kevin Anderson. I work in clinical operations at Alexion Pharmaceuticals here in Cambridge. And I'm on the Data Management Biometrics ClinOps group.
I'm Bob Bondrick. I'm the CEO of Carafast. It's a research tools company. I'm on the Forum Advisory group and previously with the Drug Discovery group here.
Let's go around.
I'm Kendall O'Connell. I'm Vice President of Member Services and In-House Counsel here at Mass Bio. And on behalf of Susan and the whole Mass Bio team, we're very pleased to have you all on board to help us bring some really exciting content and speakers to our members through our forum programming. It's great to see some familiar faces, and it's really exciting to see some new faces. So thanks again for your participation. I think 2015 is going to be a great year of programming.
You all know me, so I'm the Director of Member Services, and you're going to be talking to me a lot this year, which I'm very excited about. Robert.
So I'm Robert Sudo, President and CSO of Exo Biostructures. So we're a contract research company, and I'm on the drug discovery.
James Richardson, William Gallagher Associates, and I'm a co-chair on the HR working group.
Jerry Cox with Valesco Pharma. Valesco is an early phase CMC CRO CMO, and I'm aptly joining the CRO CMO working group.
Dave Mann is Biotherapeutic. I'm on the L&R working group.
Marshall Shamitsky, Merrimack Pharmaceutical, Environmental Health and Facility.
Konstantin Linik, Madam McLean Fish, and I'm co-chair of the Legal and Regulatory Group.
I'm Sabina Laszlo with Medchem Partners in Lexington, and I'm a member of the Forum Advisory.
I'm Luba Greenwood. I'm a member of the Entrepreneurial University here, all together. And I'm a lecturer in law at BU Boston.
Lana Gladstein with Nada McLennan Fish, and I'm a Entrepreneurs University co-chair.
Steve Altieri, I'm a patent attorney at Morgan Lewis, and I'm also a BU co-chair.
John Hessian, sounds like I fought on the wrong side in the revolution. I'm a partner of Morse, Barnes, Brown in Pendleton, and I was the co-founder with John Halloran of Entrepreneurs University.
John Riley, Touch Genetics, one of the co-chairs of the BD Finance Working Group.
David Altman from Boston Children's Hospital in the Technology and Innovation Development Office. I'm the Marketing Communications Manager, and I'm on the Marketing Communications Group.
Mo Tacey, I'm with the New Boston Innovation Hub at Merck & Co., where I do business development, specifically search and evaluation, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the Business Development and Finance Working Group.
Helen Ho from Agios Pharmaceuticals. I'm part of the BD and Finance Working Group.
John Balser from Veristat LLC, biostatistician on the Biostatistics Data Management and Clinical Trials Working Group.
Good morning, I'm Denise Aronson from Safety Partners. I'm the president and founder of Safety Partners, and we're a professional services organization that provides workplace safety and compliance to small to mid-sized life science companies and adjuncts to larger biotech's EHS programs. I'm on the SEF, Safety Environment Facilities group.
I'm Lauren Solano, one of the co-founders of Propel Careers. We do recruitment and career development with the future leaders in life sciences, and I'm involved with the HR group.
Peter Barnes-Brown, I'm with Morse Barnes-Brown in Pendleton, and I'm a new co-chair of Entrepreneurs University.
Good morning, I'm Mark Cody. I'm with Excelliant Partners. We're a drug development consulting firm, and I've been a member of the Entrepreneur University for the last couple of years now.
I'm Paul Conrad. I'm with AMAG Pharmaceuticals, so out in the suburbs, so I had to trek in through traffic this morning. And I'm in business development, and I've just joined the business development and finance working group.
Hi, I'm Kamal Rashid. I'm from Worcester Polytechnic Institute. I'm on the biomanufacturing working group.
Hi, I'm Debbie Benjamin. I'm with Celgene Autonomics Research, which is a subsidiary of Celgene, and I'm on the Forum Advisory Board.
There's a chair right here, Debbie.
Make yourself
There we go.
comfortable, Debbie.
Just make yourself, yeah, no pressure. Thank you all. Thank you all. This is just a terrific group. What I would like to do next is just, we've had a couple of changes. We have our Forum Advisory Liaisons. Again, Debbie Benjamin, Bob Bondrig is here, and John Hessian and Svetlina. Their function is now to support, guide, and help all of you with the process of producing, executing on forums. And as resources for speakers, for content, for support, basically. Bob, did you want to say anything?
Well, we actually, each of us have come from one of the prior working groups, so that's sort of the history. So we've sort of been managing that process earlier in our relationship with NSBio, and so we've sort of been I like to say, up and out, moved up to the Forum Advisory Board. But we're here for a liaison and for also for context and continuity of how we've tried things in the past, and have ideas that might also be helpful to do things that we can do. So it's that kind of advisory role.
So not only do you have your co-chairs in your working groups as resources and as to help with executing, you have this entire collection of great minds in the room to bounce ideas off of. And you also have our forum advisory liaisons to help with execution. So what I'd like to do right now is just review best practices, roles and responsibilities. As you know, all of you who have been here from the start know this, and the people that I've spoken with recently, every working group, each co-chair is tasked with leading or co-leading at least one forum per year. We know if all of you do one forum, there's not enough days on the calendar, but at least to collaborate or lead one forum. As I mentioned, there are two kinds of forums that we'll be talking about. Collaborating on series forums, which is one of the goals of this meeting, is to think about a short series, and producing your own standalone deep dive forums in your field of expertise. This is an extraordinary opportunity to just provide the membership with focused, really topic-driven technical material, be it science, business, whatever you and your working group come up with as a really high-value topic for your community, say the Marcom community or whatever, but also for the membership at large. So best practices for roles and responsibilities. Co-chairs are tasked with planning and executing forums. You develop forum content. This is what our standing meetings, our standing calls are for, to brainstorm and to start a pipeline of topics. You coordinate speaker outreach, looking for speakers, high-value speakers, name recognition, and speakers that haven't been here recently, so they're new, that will attract people, a good audience. You'll define a target market. Who do you want to hear this information? So you'll help us target, really focus on the people that you want in the audience who need to hear the material you're presenting, and promote forum awareness. We have announcements, we'll have social media verbiage. Reach out into your networks and help promote awareness for the forums and to help convene the community. Keep us in the loop, that would be me, on logistics. And as you all know, with any production, there's a timeline and there are deadlines. So keeping it moving in a timely fashion so that we can get it out there on our website, get it marketed in time to get you the kind of audience that you want. And as I mentioned, this is an extraordinary resource. If you're looking for more ideas, some input, reach out to other groups, forum advisory liaisons, all of your fellow co-chairs. For instance, legal and regulatory. Dave, they're putting together a good promotional practices forum. Marcom is the perfect collaboration for that, so reaching out and making that possibly a project.
And Susan will circulate a full list of contacts for all of the different working groups, names, emails, etc.
Right, as soon as I get everything updated, I've got it probably by the time I send out notes for this, it'll all be on there with a couple of other ancillary documents. So you'll all have full access, contact to each other. So again, reach out. You're not just dealing with just your own. You're not an army of one. You've got a lot of resources to talk to. So, process. As I said, each group has their own standing calls or meetings. Some groups meet twice a month, some once a month. These are your opportunities to brainstorm topics. And then when you keep a pipeline of topics going, fresh current topics. Why are these important? Are they newsworthy? Has anybody presented it before? High-value speakers, people that, name recognition if possible, people who are engaging speakers. We want the kind of programming where people will say, I'm going to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and drive into Kendall Square because I want to hear this. I need to hear this. So this is all part of, the upfront thinking. What's the high value? What's going to bring that kind of audience in and be exciting? This is.
And a good litmus test is, would you take
Yes.
2 hours out of your day to come? You know, if it's in the middle of the afternoon, would you leave what you're doing because you need to see this topic? Because these are speakers that you haven't heard anywhere else. Or is it the same speaker that you've seen at 9 different places and you're like, yeah, I already know what that individual has to say. So that's what I think we have to really work to differentiate from this year.
It's true. I mean, as you go through topics and speakers, the MassBio website is a terrific resource. Search, when's the last time we presented something like this? When's the last time Kiran Reddy spoke? Or, you know, it just makes sense to do this up front. And of course, run all of the ideas and potential speakers by me, and I can double check on that as well. Keep a hot list of companies of interest. I know Drug Discovery for a long time had a terrific series bringing up what's going on at particular companies. People want to hear this. And then also, as you create this pipeline, who's going to be the contact for this person? Who brought up the idea? Who's got leads? Who's thinking more about it? And then, as a topic bubbles to the surface, maybe you see somebody in a conference this would be a terrific moderator for this topic. I'm going to take the lead. So that lead manages the forum production timeline. And it may be just one person, maybe 2, or someone else from another group. But those leads manage the forum production timeline, coordinate the specific planning calls, meetings, put together a planner. You've all seen this document, a planner where you start an outline, a list of potential speakers, prioritized list. The outline, as it gets circulated among the members of your group back and forth for input, that eventually morphs into what we put out on our calendar when we post the event and open it for registration. So this all needs to be worked in time. And as a lead, assign the task, you draft the description, the talking points, and who's going to contact which speaker. And you act basically as the main point person for me so that I can get this all moving and get all the logistics set up to get this on the calendar and get it going for you.
Just a point on that, for some of the folks that are new, you have a formal template that you kind of use that has these open blocks that you can probably circulate around, so as folks are thinking about this, they kind of have that format right there in front of them.
Yes, thanks, Mark. Most of you have seen this, but what I will do when I circulate notes from the meeting, I'll put a template, forum planner template. There's a space for title, format, the draft description, which of course will start out as talking points, as in the first meetings, and then speakers, and then bios. I also think I'm going to put a checkbox in for when's the last time this was presented, and when's the last time we heard from this speaker, just to stay current, just to stay really current. So I will send around a planner template. Most of you have seen these. And that acts as a live document, and when things are ready to go, that's it. That's all you need for me to put this into the website. If you're thinking about asking other groups for input, that planner, everybody knows the planner, put it in an email and say, what do you think? And so it's right there. It's a really, really efficient use of time. Yeah, so as people circulate updates and all work together as a team. But again, the lead is the one who will be coordinating most of the effort. You got to keep each other in the loop. With each meeting, with each standing meeting, I'll do a brief recap with action items and then circulate those as rolling notes. I'll ask you to add color and anything that I've missed or add more details. And then I'll incorporate those into the standing rolling notes and send those out again. So here's what really has been working well for a forum timeline. No less than 12 weeks, got an idea, it's ready to go. I'll put a couple of dates, one, maybe 2 dates on the calendar. This is when you start your speaker outreach. Think about your target market, your audience. The planner is started and content is developed. By 6 weeks out, the date needs to be confirmed, final description, format, speakers, everything confirmed, so that we can put this live into the Mass Bio calendar. And we got our first of the monthly announcements out, Friday events update, to get maximum exposure and the kind of marketing that we need, again, to get people that you want in that audience, the people who need to hear what you're proposing to present. 3 weeks out, our Marcom department prepares targeted marketing announcements, a sheet with Twitter and LinkedIn messaging that you can then send out to your networks. The announcement, again, that we ask that you send out to your networks and forward, and to create awareness for the forum.
It's essentially a media packet that you don't have to recreate the wheel, just easily shoot that out to any contacts or folks. John Hession does a great job of sending out the message to his contacts.
Patrick does a credible job. You have a company newsletter. Denise, you've done an extraordinary job of getting the word out to your networks. If your company has a newsletter or an intranet, pop it in there. The more we can spread the word, the better the audience and the better response we'll get, and it's a success for all.
And I know these seem like a lot of different documents, but we have tried to streamline the process as much as possible. So that one working document is just one document that will only be circulated around your group. And then the media packet. So those are where there's not a ton of different pieces circulating, although it may sound like it from this. But we've tried to streamline the process as much as possible. But of course, we're always open to suggestions. So as you get in the weeds of things.
One thought might be to send it around, I guess forum advisory people would be honored to do that, but it might be helpful because sometimes you just, you can't get to everything, but if there was a flyer from another group, let's say business development was doing something, it's very easy, once you create a group that's life science oriented and then just populate it and blast it. I think we also have a responsibility to bring in more members, smaller firms, and it's a very powerful trade organization. I don't think people who are in smaller startups realize the power of this organization. And I think a good thing to do is, even if you just send it out like a sample flyer that you can take, clip, and blast in a blind CC email. Because all it's doing is keeping people aware of the variety of programs you do.
Absolutely, and that's what we're looking to this group to do, to extend to a broader audience. I mean, essentially these programs, particularly for our small to medium-sized member companies, are kind of their professional development programming, because most of them don't have budgets for this, so they rely on us to provide that type of content. So we really want to get it out to as broad an audience as possible to, one, ensure that we're filling the seats for your speakers and for your particular topic, but also to make sure that we're educating folks who need this type of information.
It's really, the forums are one of the chief deliverables for our members to come to learn, to teach, and of course to network. So yes, for each forum, a targeted announcement is created. That goes out, and that's what you can just forward to whatever, whatever lists you have, whoever you want to hear about it. But thank you, John. Yes, this is key. And then a week or two before any forum, all the final planning calls, the slides need to be in. I need to have them here so I can load them up. And that's the last deadline. Speaker releases. We do record just about all of the forums. And again, it's a terrific resource for our membership because you can just log on, go to the video archive, and watch on demand all recorded forums since about 2007. So it's a terrific.
You can watch it live, or you can watch it archived.
Yep, you can live stream as well. So that's the timeline that's been working for us so far. Anybody have any suggestions, comments? All right. Yeah, and again, keep each other in the loop. Advanced planning is just so important. So next, let's see. I'm just going to review the standalone forums. These are the forums that each working group presents in their own discipline. And these have been just some absolutely standout events from each group. BD Finance, I collaborated with EU, our JP Morgan recap. Every year, we do a recap of what went on at the JP Morgan conference. And we had 143 registered for the one this year. People want to know. Well, Mark, you want to just give a little brief?
Sure. So this is a program we actually started 2 years ago because a lot of folks here kind of in Cambridge and companies are not going out to JP Morgan. So what we were trying to do from Mass Bio was find folks that had gone to JP Morgan and actually could come back and really share some insights with folks who weren't able to go. So what's happening at the meeting? What are the key trends? If you go, what should your expectations be? What are the expectations of the VCs, of the pharma partners? So that way, if folks were planning to attend in the following year, they can kind of get a sense for really what their expectations should be. And then we kind of did, it's not, I don't think it's actually up here, but we did a JP Morgan kind of primer in September, which maybe we think about doing again this year. Because if you're going, you really need to start thinking about that in September. And how do you get ready for it? What should your expectations be? What do you need to do? So it seems like it's been a pretty good program that I think the membership actually wants to see continuing annually. So that was kind of some of the thinking behind it.
Yes, and again, all the elements are here. It's a hot topic. Everybody wants to know it's timely. We had a terrific response, so we know this is the kind of thing that's going to, well, that brought a number of people here to hear this particular forum. Biostats Data Management Clinical Trials just had an extremely successful forum on biomarkers. 101 people registered. The material was spot on, timely, and it reached into the interest of a pretty wide part of our membership. Legal and Regulatory did a terrific forum in conjunction with Rare Disease Day at the State House. Mladen's not here, unfortunately. He was the lead on that. 94 were registered, excuse me, but we had a lot more there because people just filed in. Again, it was timely in conjunction with our regular Rare Disease Day event, of interest to a broad section of our membership. SEF had a terrific one. Again, people want to know regulatory updates, enforcement. We had 84 registered for that. So looking at all of these, the material is timely. It's got a broad interest, and it's a hot topic, and it hadn't been presented before. So we got the kind of draw that we're looking for to get you the kind of audience you want for these things. And there was adequate lead time to market effectively. So what we're going to talk about today also are, so these are the standalone forums that all of the working groups will be working on. The other kinds of forums are the collaborative forums that we have created series out of. The first one we did in 2013, Adventures in Biotech, taking an idea from concept to selling all the way down. We started out with a dream theme, case studies, financing. Once you have the business plan, how do you finance, then executing, how do you put together a team, science tactics, and then selling the dream. And the last one was probably the best attended, nightmares. What happens when the FDA pulls the rug out of phase 3? It's just crash and burns. People, you read about it in economy, but nobody really hears the story. So we had a terrific panel doing that. Again, timely and hot topics that people really wanted to know about. And business development, a number of groups collaborated on these. Drug discovery, CRO, CMO, FDD, human resources. It was a great opportunity to collaborate and put this series together. And then in 2014, we did 2 other series. Another hot topic, people were talking about global issues in biotech, where you can't just look in your backyard. And we put together a wonderful series on that. An overview, and then 3 buckets, regional buckets. And again, just about every group participated in putting this together. And then the last one that we did, again, the topic was chosen from our 2020 report, which is basically a report on the state of the industry and recommendations. And we took those recommendations, which were basically taking into account the perspective of major stakeholders in healthcare, and created a 3-forum series on that. It was very successful, and again, just about every group participated, and we had good response. So here's what we're thinking. All of those series were months in the planning. And what we'd like to do today is think about what can we put together for just a 2-forum series that we can schedule for late May, one for late May, one for June. And these are topics that we've come up with. We pulled these topics from the 3 buckets, basically. Our annual meeting steering committee topics, again, looking back at the 2020 report, thinking about what was important, and almost the most important, conversations with you all and what you're thinking about planning for topics in the pipeline. What has come up as over and over again has been social media. Social media. I know we've been thinking about, actually Marcom has had something in the pipeline for a while, and I think for reasons we couldn't just pull together the speakers in time, that's still on the docket. David, you want to just give a very brief?
Yeah, well, we were thinking about talking about social media in the context of working with patient groups and clinical trials and patient recruitment for clinical trials. And so I think that's a topic we'll continue to work on and try to put an event together around very soon.
And I know legal and regulatory, Dave, they're putting together, good promotional practices. This, of course, social media is a natural fallout from that. HR, Patrick, we were talking about putting together a social media forum for HR. So just about all groups, and biostats, clinical trials, and data management, social media. Just about all groups have expressed an interest in this, and somewhere in the pipeline, it keeps popping up. So this is a hot topic that we really haven't covered. So
the way this one would work might be a little bit different than some of the other series that Susan showed you, because it clearly wouldn't be a story, but it would be more of a branding exercise, and then we could touch upon the specific areas that would be relevant in the working groups. And so it could be a 2-part, it could be a 3-part. We just have a limited bandwidth on our calendar to pull off something, before summer. But as Susan mentioned, it's a reoccurring theme that's been coming up on her working group phone calls. So that would be something that we sort of already have the wheels turning and might be able to turn out relatively quickly.
Right, because bio is the 3rd week of June. So we've got a limited time frame, but certainly there's enough material here to pull maybe a 2-forum series together. Other topics have come up: infectious disease, looking at drug resistance vaccines, consolidation. I know, Edwin, we've had a conversation that this came up, looking at, big companies are buying small ones, they're consolidating, that's a business model, but when they consolidate, do we lose? They buy companies that have technologies that are going to fit with their pipeline. Are we losing our R&D reach and narrowing? And then data is another one that consistently comes up. This could be a great topic for a series later, maybe Q3, Q4 in the year, because MassBio is doing an LSIT event in May. So we'll see what kind of interest is generated from that.
LSIT, just for those who weren't part of this, was a reoccurring theme that came out of our 2020 Impact 2020 industry report. And so the event in May will be our first type of LSIT specific event. So we think that there'll be themes that we can touch upon to maybe think about a series the second half of the year. But we just wanted to put it up here for everyone to consider.
So I think that input, let's see, about social media, what are you all thinking? Does this seem like something that we could put together a 2-forum series on, your ideas? How does that fit with your thinking?
Susan, I definitely think it could be something like a 2-part series, because we're going through this right now with one of our companies where we've been pretty stealth for the last couple of years, and now we're actually to the point where we have to start putting news out. But the thing is, before we actually start leveraging social media, we actually have to kind of group internally to say, who are we, what's our message, kind of what are patients thinking, what are prescribers thinking, what are partners thinking, what are potential investors thinking. So you really kind of need to get your package down first before you actually just start going out and blasting information. So the first part of the series could be kind of just setting the landscape, and then the second part of the series is actually maybe around the execution of social media.
And just to follow up to Mark's comment, I think a great combination would be, so I'm going to suggest that Tom sit next to me here from Marcom and EU, you like how I volunteered you, get together. They could do a great sort of training one, sort of first one on branding, on usage, on privacy, and then to Mark's comment, a second part series, which would be maybe two other groups, completely independent, like HR I could think of, partners with somebody, and do a deeper dive on privacy issues, cybersecurity issue, patient consent, online forms, if you will, for that sort of thing. So one is a big broad overview and the big themes, and and the second one is a little deeper dive, and just from the EU stuff we've done, our sense is a lot of the younger companies just, this is sort of secondary thinking to them. They're deep in the science when they're getting started, and they don't think of the web presence or the social media aspect.
Well, and there's the whole regulatory aspect. I know Dave and Gwen, we talked about this. Any thoughts to add to this?
Yeah, it could go along with planning and how do you put in place the review process, and it could also go in line with execution, because how do you review real time? It's a lot of work for folks that commit to looking at the, especially tweets, looking at what the messaging is going to be on short notice, because sometimes you don't get a lot of advance notice that those are going to go out. So how do you really do that with especially a small staff? Do you have any other thoughts?
And even someone to review FDA's guidance on the use of social media, right, that are all in the last year, which are pretty interesting to read regarding the accuracy of information that anyone puts out on the internet, and your obligation or not to keep it accurate.
And I know in our discussions in Marcom, we were talking about, who's watching, who's monitoring social media. Lonnie, do you want to give a little bit of what we were talking about?
So, this is what I do every day. So I manage all the social media for Biogen. So, I like the idea of, so this is what I have done over the last year and a half, like set up infrastructure. What does that mean to a company? How do you, work with legal and regulatory from the very, very start, even before you do anything? And then how does that transition to the actual day-to-day? And what does that mean in terms of commitment of time, of resources? I think all of that could be really interesting for folks. Whether you're in a small, company or a large company, it's been an interesting process for me personally. But
yeah, I think you may want to also have. I'm sorry, you say something. Sorry, breathing. I think you may also want to talk about the once you go through IPO, the implications of going public and what that means to social media. I think there also is, you could have a program that's geared towards more big companies such as Biogen, the Pfizers and Mercks of the world, where it is very important for them to see what is the practice of the other companies, what are they doing, how are they doing, what are they doing to monitor. That's a little different than when you're a small company. What you care about is, how do I guide, either if you're head of marketing, head of legal, head of finance, you need to understand, how do you guide your CEO? What can your CEO do, right? Because the CEO basically was consumed with raising money and saying a lot of things, and spinning a lot of things. Not necessarily that they were inaccurate, but certainly there's a lot of spin to it for valuation purposes. And what do you do next, right? Once you're a public company, what can you say? What can actually be potentially insider trading? What can be misleading, making misleading statements, public misleading statements? So I think that would be interesting to many groups. I could see that in the legal regulatory group, certainly see the finance business development, that's very important in their space. And Entrepreneurs University, that's certainly something that's a big part for us, so.
I'm trying to think of something that facilities and safety would apply to in this. And usually, this might apply to everybody, is preparing for an unplanned event. So in our case, we might have an accident we have to deal with, and then try to manage that information and how it might go out. And I suppose with FDA-related things and other compliance-related things, that might be something helpful.
Kind of tying into business continuity.
Yeah, you know, if you have something happen, how do you get that information out to your own people or to your investors, or you know, in an organized fashion?
I was also going to say there's probably establishing policies and procedures so that the employees know what they're allowed to. You know, we're all on social media. Are we allowed to respond? Similar to in the old days where what you said on a message board or something was restricted.
I was gonna say that's a big thing that we're focused on now, especially employee social media usage, and what does it mean? This kind of goes back to what you were saying, is that, you know, what's the difference between personal use, business use, and where do the lines kind of intersect, especially if you are upper management of a company, and how do you as the CEO, CFO, or just anyone in the management team use your personal spaces as it aligns to business or not? What does that mean for you, you know, moving forward? That's been a really big question that I've seen, you know, across, not just in, you know, my company, but at all companies that I've seen, you know, talk about, you know, digital and social usage. Like, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's very important for pretty much every company in the world, except it doesn't apply to Secretary of State, but other than that. It applies to every company.
Well, that remains to be seen, doesn't it?
Susan, another subtopic maybe that falls under social media is, you know, how do you use social media to reach out to patients, to their stakeholders, you know, Facebook, tweets, or other, you know, patient foundations? How do you go about doing that? And I wonder if that's something the commercial marketing group would be able to help us better understand as part of this forum. Or
John?
And one follow-up to that, Dana Ball, you know, the T1D, the nonprofit, they have built a very powerful social registry, you know, for diabetes patients. You know, something like 25,000 contributors who have consented, and they've built a huge patient population on that for disease studies. He's a pretty good speaker too, so.
yeah, and I think
We have a big post-it pad and start putting this down as we go.
I
But
think related to that is not so much like, you know, not only just what could you do, but what are the regulatory or, you know, legal issues along with those, like, you know, how much can you interact with the patients
And they had to do that when they first started this patient registry. They did a lot of work on that, the privacy issues, the consent issues, so I'm sure you'd probably be willing to share.
well, and also what I mean, here, this looms large. Clinical trials. You know, we've got this is what we're basing the first Marcom social media. Actually, I have the draft here. Marcom was thinking about this. David and Jim, who's not here today. Social media and clinical trials, opportunities and risks. This is huge. You know, patients are getting information actively and passively through multiple channels. You know, are they talking about the results and, you know, what are the risks in that? So clearly there's enough.
Susan, it seems based on all the ideas that this kind of 1/2 forum series might be like 5. Yeah.
Roger?
Yes, I think it's really interesting that there's a lot of points being raised on you know, regulatory aspects of what gets posted on social media and what the responsibilities are in monitoring and who's doing it and what, where, and when. Would it be helpful to do something with just going back to basics, like what is LinkedIn for? Why would you use it? How do you use it? And what are the other platforms best used for? Like, what do you post? What should you post on LinkedIn? What information should you make available or make hidden? and why, and how does that relate to the other platforms, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or the other things that where you know, the posts might be fast and furious, and you need to be careful about what it is, especially if you're a public company or you have talking about a regulated product. There seems to be, and I see a lot of people just on LinkedIn who are there, but they really don't seem to have a clue what to do with it.
This could be part of an introductory or overview session.
Yeah, first one is, you know, what is it, what do you do with it, and how?
We had talked about doing that, our group, and we thought, you know, there's a lot of resources in the Boston area that have kind of done those types of presentations, so we're thinking of kind of doing the next step. But we could potentially do a forum around that.
You know, the tech guys do this kind of thing all the time, right? Folks in life sciences, not so much.
Yeah. So we could do that.
So an introduction to uses, what's out there and uses. What else?
I think that, probably agree a little bit with that that's probably existing. It is. So we want to make sure it's
A little deeper.
different. Yeah, so I think starting a little bit more with that concept that Mark first brought forth, so, you know, for a startup company.
Well, for
As
startups.
opposed to the individuals, right? Because I think people can find places where they can get information on what they should be using personally on their LinkedIn as opposed to from a company perspective.
Yeah.
Susan, I was thinking that it would be cool to like do these two big sections, you know, two general ones, but then if there's in between those meetings that if there's a deep dive that's necessary, you can actually do it then. So let's say you really wanted to get into a regulatory issue, boom, you could really hit that really hard, and that could be a single thing done by that working group.
Yep.
But the other ones are sort of like kind of broad, like to touch on HR related issues in social media. It's really big. You've got everything from what someone has a right to do as an individual for their own personal branding and respecting what that might be. But then you also have to manage what the company messaging is from a marketing standpoint. Then the challenge is also what people are saying about your company that are former employees. It's a big area right now, like Glassdoor, or how you're trying to attract new people for the future. So there's a lot of risk involved from a legal perspective as well. Like, you know, from a employer standpoint and engaging with people. How do you represent your company on Facebook versus LinkedIn? It's maybe completely different. You might want to be going for different things. So there's really just a number of areas. So for HR, we're probably going to have to do like an individual deep dive probably in this area, simply around the area. But you know, it's a huge topic.
It really is. So in thinking about, well, that sounds like the most reasonable structure is just two rather general, you know, broad brushstrokes for social media from different perspectives, LR, clinical trials, and then each working group does a deep dive off of that. This is sort of a lead-in. So what would a two-forum series look like?
And could an initial forum on this be case studies, successful case studies of people who of larger companies or established companies who are already using social media and how they're using it? And that way it still might be in a panel format, it's very informational, very discussion, and then those deep dives, they get a taste of what is out there, and then the deeper dives will take them into how to get it going in their own company.
It's also defining what it is. I think if you ask people in this room what social or digital media or marketing is, you'd probably get a number of different answers.
That's true. That's true. So.
No, you're just stretching.
Oh, just put your hand up. You're in it.
And one area that's interesting, which would probably be hard to do, is the monitoring it, as companies try to put out
specific messages and then track to see if it has any traction. I don't know if anybody would be willing to share case studies on that aspect of it, but it's really pretty fascinating when if messages are picked up and are basically pushed through the system by different groups and organizations.
Like analytics.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Analytics.
One thing that's, I think, always good to have is crossover. And if you could pull somebody from a digital media, PR shop that advises it really on the tech side, who obviously had been there light years before life science was, with no disrespect, but somebody that's got a signature brand in Boston or something like that, top person at that firm, who's been pretty successful in that, lack of a better example, I'm thinking of somebody like at Constant Contact or something like that who's had to deal with that. It's always great for a crossover effect, and I think it pulls people because of, divergent opinion, different background.
There's also Get Fused, which is a company that produced Mass Bio's app.
Yeah. So let's think about what would this two-part intro look like? Would we both have case studies? Each of them would deal with a different aspect, one legal and regulatory, HR, and then maybe the next one, clinical trials and other R&D, more R&D focused aspects. Thoughts? Yes?
Maybe on the clinical trial one, it could be kind of all patient engagement. So clinical trial engagement, advocacy engagement, clinician engagement, whatever it might be, but more about educating the end user or the people involved in that process.
Does that make more sense? I mean, what I'm looking for here right now is how do we structure a two-part?
How about like a non-for-profit like ALS? Is there an organization that has to be in touch with their patient population and their local, obviously?
You can talk about the ice challenge.
Yeah, one more time? Come on. Well, how'd they share that, actually? Yeah, that's a good point.
Maybe this is too basic of a way to break it down, but it sounds like we have a lot of topics about communicating out to patients and other folks outside of your organization, and then we're talking about our internal communication with our own employees and maybe how we might manage information that we want to get out to them, or how we want them to manage information about the company, to your point. And maybe that's too basic of a way to draw a line between two groups, but.
I agree. It's internal versus external.
Internal versus external. So what would that look like?
Internally, I think it touches on all these things. I mean, what are the regulatory risks and implications? What are the HR risks and implications of utilizing social media to promote your company, and then allowing, or what you do not allow your employees to post and talk about? And the external is what everybody's trying to do, is generate interest and continuous communication about the successes of your company. Maybe it's even case studies about how to minimize the negative messaging that's going on about your company. I'm sure there are people out there that had fight hard battles to fix their own customer and consumer image. Does Biogen have like a standard operating procedure for how employees are to work with social media?
Yes, we have a few things. We have policies, we have SOPs.
They have to sign something.
Some training, yeah. So that was part of the build of the infrastructure that I set up within the organization.
That'd be a really cool story to hear how that came to be. Now, the question is, do they want to share that?
I don't want to be the speaker.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I know, the social media biotech pharma world is actually pretty small.
Yeah.
And I know most folks who have either gone through the process or done the process too. So I'm sure we could find some really interesting people who could talk to, how they did that, how they set it up. But I do like that internal versus external setup. Could be a nice way to touch upon those topics from like kind of a high level. And then, to your point, if you wanted to do like deeper dives into some sections that we feel like beyond us, like our audience is really, like the other members of MassBio would really want to know about this and do a deeper session into that.
Yeah, it'd just be cool to think that, like a Biogen could create an SOP, so could a Bluebird, or a Bluebird, or a
Oh yeah, I mean, this is the third SOP that I've made, so you can do it.
That'd be kind of cool.
It's really a question of, having, to me, the social media piece is really about mindset. It's about changing the mindset of a company. It's getting people to be open to something that, even though it's been around now for 8 or 9 years, that people in our industry are still a little hesitant or just not so connected into it. They may do it on their own. You may have a Facebook page, but from a company standpoint, it seems to be like you have to change sort of your viewpoint about how you look at it. So that to me has been the most interesting piece. Is like, how do you change people's mindsets and educate people on what it is or what it isn't, and then get people to be comfortable with it. Because it still feels really new for people, even though it's not technically new.
They may not value it.
And I think that's the thing too. I think that there is a lot of value in communicating and engaging. And even in the year or year and a half that I've been doing it there, I've seen some amazing things happen that I never thought would happen. So I think that's something we could talk to too, related to case studies, is maybe getting some folks from different companies who have done it and some of the really nice things that have occurred in terms of engagement or sharing or.
So creating an SOP, your SOP.
I guess what I'm a little concerned about is that I think that the issues for small companies are so different than the issues for larger. And if I were to do this, I would separate it rather than intro or external versus internal. I would separate it versus big company versus small company. I mean, we're talking that, for example, the culture you want to create at Biogen is very similar than what Pfizer's doing, similar to what Merck's doing, right? You want to encourage your employees to have different initiatives within the company. Oh, let's have an environmental initiative and save the cost of people, right? Or let's do this, let's do an outreach and reach out to ALS or something. Let's all run for some sort of foundation. It's very different. And then the issues, you have a marketed product that's already on the market. You have to be very careful about what you say about the product. You have to be very careful and monitor what other people say to you. You don't want to say, so the issues are so different, because for a company that's large, has a lot of people, again, who want to create a mindset, I think that's absolutely correct. But those are very different than the issues in a small company, right? I think it would be extremely valuable for people from a small biotech to say, when do we even hire somebody that's marketing? I don't know, right? Very practical things. I don't know when we hire. Is it our office manager that's supposed to be doing? Do we have to actually hire somebody that's doing this? When do we start? And even the SOPs are very different. What you lay out in the SOP for small biotech, and I say small from 2-person to even 200 or 500, is very different than the SOP that you would have for a large company. So if I were doing it, I would separate it out as a forum for small to mid-size, here are the things, or small to mid-size before you have a marketed product, and then there you can have before IPO, after IPO, public, private, and then you have a second part, which is, you can also do public, private, but most of them are public anyway, large companies.
So this sounds like a great deep dive once we get, the initial introductory session, SOPs, looking at big and small companies and some of the case studies that you were talking about, Alana.
I couldn't agree more with Luba. I think social media, unfortunately, or whatever it is, Kevin represented small life science companies for 25 plus years. It's, one of the last things that gets addressed. And so it's because they're chasing the science and the financing first. So I actually think the issues for small companies on this are probably ill understood, and this would be a great primer for them. So I totally agree with them.
I think definitely differentiating somewhere within all of this between, the marketed product versus the non, or the, so for example, we're using it for patient and site recruitment for the first time, and we're working in ultra-rare disease. It's extremely hard to find patients, and now all of a sudden we have people from all over the world reaching out to us because of our landing page, and we're doing things on LinkedIn. I'd be very interested to know what a Biogen is doing, other company, again, back to the success stories, but I think, it's different when it's, non-marketed products versus branding, marketed products. And I think there would be interest in both arenas to a lot of folks.
Susan, one way of combining or connecting the big company and small company social media challenges and uses would be, even in one program, to have a demonstration from a big company of all the possible uses. And then have somebody that's advising small companies start to talk about, okay, here's where you can start. And I mean, obviously it's a matter of budget and resources, but this is where you can go to. Here are the ways that small companies typically get started in using social media.
So what would this look like in a 2-forum series? The first session, we would talk about basically some basic concepts, Alana, that you brought up. Talk about what's different maybe between big and large companies. How would we make this into a cohesive 2-forum series? What would this look like?
I mean, I think you have to start out by just discussing the different possibilities, because I think in addition to the internal versus external stuff, I mean, that's all about sort of marketing and knowing what people are saying about your company and investors. The patient side, where you're talking about you're getting patients getting in touch with you, that's a completely different scenario, because it's got to be HIPAA compliant. There's regulatory issues. It's completely different. So I think understanding how those things fit into different buckets might be the way to start, right? And then once you know what bucket this thing fits into, you can know where to go with it.
So again, in presenting this as a forum.
I mean, I think in the big broad strokes, it's sort of internal, external, and patient-based stuff. I mean, those are big broad buckets, right? And then you've got big company, small company.
Maybe what you're saying is it's really audience-based. Is it HR,
that's right.
so you're appealing to potential candidates? Is it patient-based, whether it's for investigational trials or for marketed products for advertising promotion? Or is it investor community? So maybe it's more audience-driven, and then each of those have their own legal and regulatory review processes and concerns.
Or maybe it's sequential. It sounds like there are some basic things that companies need to do to get started, and typically smaller companies leave that for too long. What do you need to do to get started? What are the basics? And then the second series is for mature companies that have products on the market trying to recruit patients. Some of the more advanced uses of social media. We can do it kind of chronologically.
Like social media 101 that covers surrounding regulations, and then what does it actually mean? Like, what is social media? As a first part CP.
Well, again, I mean, what do you do to need to get started, and then just break it into buckets, for small companies.
But I think it's what you're trying to do with social media. Social media is sort of a buzzword, but it's, what are your goals? Why would you do it? And so then why you're going to do it is going to drive what you're going to do, right?
So how would that look in a forum, a panel? What would we?
Maybe you have one talking about the investor side, you have one talking about patient recruitment side, you have one talking about branding, kind of the core. Just back to the basics, what are the basics that can be done, and then you can branch off in other spin-offs of that. Success stories, things like that.
So this would look good for a first session. And then a second session, what would a follow-on, deeper dive?
I'd like the chronological scenario, maybe, from startup to now your company has grown. It's, a small company of 100 employees, now maybe you've grown some more, it's 500, and, now you get to a Biogen or Merck size. But maybe talk about the issues that each of those companies is going to have, because they're going to be very different as the company goes from infancy all the way to a big company. So I mean that would I mean, you'd have the internal and external in there, but, you know, until your company grows to a certain point, chances are you don't have a product on the market.
Right.
So, I mean, all the patient confidentiality stuff would come in at a later point in time, but everything that, you know, a small company is going to be thinking about, how to get started, et cetera, is going to lay the foundation for what's going to happen later on as the company grows in size.
I agree. I think that helps us sort of brand it as a cohesive story as well.
Right.
And hit each of our market touch points within the membership.
Right.
Yeah, so we're thinking of this for the first session or the follow-on after kind of an introduction?
Well, the introduction could probably be in the first session as, you know, for like introduction and startup companies or small companies. The next session could be, you know, issues for mid-sized companies, and maybe a third session issues for very large companies.
How long are these forums?
They're typically 2 hours, 8 to 10 a.m. breakfast meetings, figure 90 minutes of content. So these are going to be broad brush strokes. It's not going to be a lot of deep dives. Those can come after, depending on, you know, the interest that gets generated.
Could another idea be where do the first panel, or first session, where we just bang out all the different things involved in social media, from Tumblr to LinkedIn to Facebook, and then which would also include the different ways that you could track the metrics behind those efforts, like Smashfly, and they're a local company. So everyone sort of gets a big picture of what social media is and the different avenues for social media to occur. And then the second session being a panel of 3 different people and a moderator, a person from a smaller type of company and how they're using social media, like a under 50 size person company, and then someone from like a 250 to 500 person company, like a Diax or something like that, and how they're, or I don't know if that's right size, but like an El Nylon, let's say, how they might be approaching social media and their responsibilities and how they're looking at it, and then Biogen, where they're, you know, a much larger organization. This way we can sort of hit them all at once.
But Patrick, don't you think there's probably a ton of different events that touch upon just general, like what? I don't know for sure, I'm not an expert by any means in social media, but I'm just saying, I feel like that's something that you can find out there pretty readily, like just basic info about the different social media platforms. So I feel like that's really basic. I feel like we have to somehow mold it into something that would apply to our different tiers of companies in a way that they can't just find it if I Google like the basics. You know what I'm saying? If we kind of mold it into a way that we're delivering them almost like a roadmap of how to navigate through these different platforms based on what stage company they are.
I mean,
yeah, I think that's, I think the anecdotal approach can be useful. I mean, storytelling really draws people in, but I think that maybe the best way we can provide value to our membership when they are starting to think about how to use social media, it's a strategic planning process, and it's individual to each company. Every company is not going to make the same use of all different social media. So I think to have somebody on the panel or panels that can talk to our members about how you plan this into your strategic plan. How does this longitudinally, how does this roll out? How do you plan for different social media in terms of the strategic objectives that your company has? I think that would provide real value.
So that would almost go, planning strategy would almost go into the first part as an overall introduction, yes? I'm just, again, I'm trying to look, we're trying to look at this as a two-part, a natural progression from one piece to the next.
Sorry, I mean, I like the idea of starting general, and I like the idea of hearing someone else's story, especially as like we're a 200-person company, and so it's nice to see what larger companies doing, because you can look down the road and maybe plan ahead a little bit and just get some of your own ideas going. But you can also combine the two. So if you want to start general in our first forum, you could have somebody telling a story which would include describing how they integrated into all these different forms of social media, and at what point they started to utilize certain things, and at what point they made an SOP for something, just to get the wheels turning. And then if we had a second forum, not to be selfish, but I'm not as interested in what we want to communicate to patients as a safety and an environmental and facilities person, but I would be very interested in hearing about maybe the HR side of stuff and how we would communicate within our own company. And so if we had a second forum where we were able to maybe break off into separate groups that might focus more on the different committees we have, because what we might market to the SEF folks would probably be similar to maybe what the HR folks are interested in, and what the external folks maybe for CROs and CMOs and manufacturing and patient care and physician communication, they might be more interested in their own stuff. And we could start that second session with, if it's an hour and a half of content, a 30-minute intro with a panel where they sort of describe something. Maybe you have the different size company representation sitting up there, and then the second portion of that being the 60 minutes, we can maybe go off into our own little rooms and talk about things that we care more about.
Well, again, the deeper dives like that, for what maybe SEF is more important to SEF as opposed to HR, these could be standalones that follow on to a general, the general two-part introductory session. So it looks like what would make sense is an introductory session. What do you need to do to get started, branding, recruitment, just general aspects. And then perhaps a second session on chronological progression have panelists representing a small startup, mid-size, and then the larger companies. What works, case studies. Because case studies are important. People come to hear, what's really going on and how people have done things. Does this make sense?
Susan, the one thing I'd add to the first half of that would, we haven't talked much about it, but I think there's sort of two faces to how social media affects our industry. One is sort of proactive, that is, how is the company communicating itself externally, on the clinical side, how is it communicating clinical results, for example, which could be huge inflectors for the company, or if there are adverse events that suddenly become apparent to a marketed product. And how do you communicate that? But then there's the reactive side. I've been part of a couple of negotiations of safety agreements between partnerships, and how does the company mine the social media sphere for information that they're bound to do, especially for marketed products and especially for public companies. So there's sort of two faces to it, which you might try to weave into that first session, which is kind of the proactive side and then the reactive side. Which will affect early private clinical companies in different ways than they affect, bigger, later public commercial companies.
And of course, on the HR side, one more thing is I sit here, there's the things where when you're going through the hiring process and you find people online and some of their social habits may not be in line with your company, or other issues that come up and what you find and the risks that go along with that. So just thought about hiring we did, so just have to keep an eye out for.
So it's looking more and more that an intro session would have representatives from different aspects of the same idea of social media. There's of course what we were talking about, proactive versus reactive, just general concepts, and panelists to represent from each kind of company what they're doing. Yes?
Susan?
Yes.
I keep hearing, as I've listened, I kind of hear we all have a different audience. Our group is a different audience. And maybe we don't necessarily know why we're going to start using social media. So maybe it's who's our audience, how do you get started and why do you get started? And that's more of a general. And the panel can be, representatives from companies that are either in a different aspect of that, or they have a story to tell on how did they get started. They may not be done, or why are they starting to investigate this? Again, they may not be complete in their company, but it's in the how do you get started so they can share. On the same panel, we may want somebody who has gone through the whole thing, who can either guide the other panelists or guide questions in the room of the people who see themselves as a different stage. So starting very general, but who's the audience? Why are we reaching out to social media, and how do we get started?
Lou and I were just talking a little bit ago about one good person that might be a good draw for the first one kind of overview would be Christoph Westphal, who's done always a great job marketing and branding his initial companies, the last several small startups he's done. And I don't think he does that internally. I believe he uses an external firm to assist in that. So, we were just chatting. That might be a great draw for the big overview, especially for the younger companies, because he's done that pretty successfully for his early stage startups.
That sounds like an excellent idea. So I guess what I'd like to do.
Susan,
Yes.
I like what Bart said, so I don't want to lose that. And I like what Bart said, of course, because he's on my team. No, but I know that the series events in the past have been these broad strokes, and that's what we're talking about here. And then the standalones are more of your working groups focused forums. I understand that format. But what I liked what Bart said is it mixes it up a little bit. The idea that you could have maybe 20 to 30 minutes of a broad stroke and then break into groups. And the reason I think it's nice, I think Bart, I hope I'm following what you said, but the idea is that it's really hard for people to take time out of their day. So if you think that people are going to show up for your two-part series, or even one of those two-part series, because they want to learn about social media, and then again they're going to show up for your SEF, deep dive into social media, that's asking a lot of people on social media to show up maybe 3 times, like two parts for your series, and then to SEF for their deep dive. So Bart, I don't know if I'm catching what you said, but I hung on to that thing where, maybe you get a really large audience here, where you get participation from the advocates from all your different working groups to show up to one or both of the big series, and then that same day that they've dedicated some time to get here to Mass Bio, you do some deep dive into your vertical.
So I'd have to respectfully disagree. The reason is you're trying to bite off too much. I think you're boiling the ocean when you only have really an hour and 50 minutes. And I think if you do a good enough job with the first session, and I mean no disrespect by doing it, but what we've learned, from 7 years with EU is that if you do a great job and you have a theme and you run that theme so it's not colliding with each other a month or 2 later, you run that theme out at least 2 months later, because Helen and I used to do 2 in a row, always planned 2 in a row in the first couple of years. And what would happen is, if you did a great job, and you also said the next one's coming, first one's coming March 25th, the next one's coming, June 10th, people will lock it in their calendar if you did a good job. I just think you're trying to accomplish too much. And then people just haven't been to all of them for 7 or 8 years. Around 10 o'clock, people start looking at their watch, and they're getting itchy, and you've lost them. You want them back again.
Exactly to your point, and that's what I would like to come out of this meeting with, is a cohesive 2-forum series that people are going to, you've got the first one, and then there's the draw, the follow-on for the next one. So absolutely, yes. So let's think about what will these 2 look like, and people who'd like to be involved, please volunteer to collaborate on one or the other. Who would be interested in pulling together the first part? I know people have been talking about this in their groups. We need people to volunteer to help lead this.
What do you mean by the first part?
Our intro session, basically the intro session to social media what we've been talking about. We're talking about branding, recruiting, and then the second part, the second forum, a chronological progression. Is representing different size companies? I mean, we've been talking about a number of things here. What does this look like?
That's not what my thing was.
All right, so
Can we ask first, how many people work for a company that is actively participating in social media? So that helps limit the, you know, either somebody else wants to step up because they want to drive it through their company, or they have the experience to help lead it.
Yeah, and I mean, these clearly need further refinement. I think at this point, we're looking for individuals who are interested in helping us refine these topics into ideally a two-part series, and there may be deeper dives in your respective group. But if you're interested in participating, raise your hand and we'll reach out to you and figure the next steps out.
So I think as the Marcom folks, we're willing to take on the kind of like, we'll help sponsor the two-part series. Is that okay with you?
sure, and we need
So that's the starting point, so let's say Marcom is sort of will help spearhead. Yes, and then I know a lot of other people had feedback, so who else was interested? Mark, would you be interested?
Yeah, because we're starting that with our biotech company right now in terms of kind of outreach and what that's looking like. So I'd be interested in sharing kind of a small company perspective too.
That'd be awesome. Great, we've got interest over in this side,
Sure, particularly in the patient recruitment.
which is an important piece of this.
huge. I saw some other hands up, Matt. Any
Yes, we'll do some of the two.
particular piece that you're interested in? Everything. Everything. Patrick?
There were some legal regulatory folks that seem to have some investment in part of this conversation. Anyone interested in?
Legal regulatory people who have,
I've never actually done it, so I know about the reg, but if you do it at your company, right, so I think it makes more sense. Have a good speaker if you can come.
All right, okay, all right, I'll participate.
That would be wonderful.
I saw some other hands up, people interested in participating.
If you're new and you haven't participated before, this is a good opportunity to see how the series parts work.
And you'll have a lot of help from, a lot of input from a lot of your colleagues. Yes? Yes.
All right, so which can you recap of which working groups we have represented?
Right now, we have Marcom, EU, Biostats Data Management, CRO, CMO, HR, and Legal and Regulatory.
Okay, we've got good representation. Do you want to help represent from the SEF perspective?
Sure.
There was a little reluctancy there. I'm
having a hard time
conceptualizing,
figuring out how it would benefit the people in our group. So, and that's why I said the idea I had would break out, because a lot of the ideas are all good ideas, but when we try to draw people from our own committee, they're not going to be that interested to talk about many of the things that we've raised. So, yeah. I mean, it is what it is, right? That's okay. I mean,
yeah, so these series aren't gonna, I mean, let's be real, they're not gonna be of interest to every single person in our membership. But if we can get the majority of folks interested, I think that's good. And if you feel like you have value to add from an SEF perspective, I do have to agree with John. I think the logistics of doing a breakout is virtually impossible to carry out from our end in a 2-hour time frame.
Yeah.
But that's not to say that you couldn't provide some important aspect that would be important to your group. And if you feel like you can't after the first phone call,
all right,
focus on an SEF topic.
Put me on the list.
No harm, no foul. Any other hands from our newer members who'd like to participate?
All right, so follow-up steps will be, 1, Susan will circulate all the contact information for all your colleagues in this room and just the basic rules and regs and the template that she discussed that you can use for your respective working groups. Next, she'll reach out to all those individuals that have expressed interest in participating on the series, and we'll probably have to set up either a call or a meeting to help refine some of these ideas that we've come up with today.
Because we've got, late May, we've got our 12-week time period. It's just plenty of time to put together the first one, and then June for the second one. Masha?
Just a comment. Judging by the interest of this group, maybe it warrants another committee altogether. Maybe social media committee, social media group with cross-disciplinary approach to these issues would be very useful in the future. Maybe after the forums, maybe this is a nice way to address the issue.
Well, I think it's a lot of what the marketing communications group will be offering. I think we want to be careful with how many different groups we're adding.
We have
because
11
it's hard
now.
for us to manage what we have right now. But we can certainly see what comes of this event and where we should look to create more value moving forward.
Anybody have anything else? We'll get you out these materials, notes from today's meeting, and then we'll all be in touch and we will convene a call to refine these concepts and come up with a true forum series.
And then individual working groups continue on with your sort of expertise specific.
Brilliant work. Thank you all. Thank you all for coming. Always interesting.
I'll be there Monday.
August may be a little
That's a good question.
Masha is collaborating on the clinical trials. So there'll be at least that's going to be represented.
We have to be out there with
Oh, no,
that.
you know, anything to add to any discussion,
Yeah.
always be appreciated.
I run a business called Safety
Thanks so much, Kevin. So you guys are all set on pulling together. All right,
Pleasure meeting you.
Yeah. coming. I'm pulling it all together now, yeah. Somebody, oh, where is that list that people were circulating around? Thank you. Okay, thanks so much for coming. You know, it's always interesting to get people's input and well, it's a bit of herding cats.
Yes, that's very good.
So I'm really what happened to the list I was circulating?
Yeah. I mean, it's new. I've never
Then it
done
went
it.
back.
Somebody
grabbed it. Let me see if I can grab something before this.
They use that. It's just our landing page through our corporate page. We've been cross-linking with patient advocacy groups, and then in a matter of less than a month, we've got from obscurity to the top 10.
Forum, that formulation of drugs.
We have patients reaching out from South Africa, like from all over the world. We'll see if they end up being in the study, but we don't need that many patients, so it's got some really great potential. Yeah, likewise.
A lot of discussions throughout the next 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where were you before? No, it's a siesta. It's a 2-day. Somebody, I don't know who made up.
I don't think it's on. Which one? Oh, sure. I've only been in these areas since 2006. I definitely learned what I'd like, but people you work with, it might be the company after. Just this constant charity, which is exciting. I was that's part of why I love it. At least it forces me to oh, well, yeah, I totally misjudged the traffic this morning. Right, that's right, yeah, you guys. So what is envelope was that? Oh, sure.
So you guys always were in the area. We've always been together. They were. Oh, sure.
How long did you take? That's good.
Yeah, they remain predominantly intact.
Miami must have had something. Yeah, go ahead. Because all these other schools